Hi everyone, welcome to Human Resource Management. Today's topic is HR compliance. I'm your instructor, Dr. Chevenise Sams Brown. So let's look at our lesson objectives. At the end of this lesson, you'll be able to list and define several HR laws that you'll learn about. You'll be able to explain key HR laws, as well as evaluate non-compliance consequences, and of course assess compliance best practices. Moving on. Now, when we talk about HR compliance, what are we talking about? So compliance has to do with the laws, sticking to these laws and regulations as well. And of course, it's HR, so that's how the human resources management part comes into it, and employee relations. Compliance also includes talking about labor laws as well as internal organizational policies, and not just talking about them but also complying with them. Some key areas of HR compliance include, and you see the list there, compensation, recruitment, hiring. So we have to make sure that we understand the laws that apply to these different processes and that we are complying, not only understanding them or being knowledgeable of them, but we're also adhering to these laws. In our next slide, we're talking about key labor laws. So we're going to delve into the topic a little bit. We're going to talk about Age Discrimination in Employment Act, or ADEA. And with this law, it has to do with age because it's age discrimination, right? So it is where people 40 years old or older sometimes are discriminated against because of their age or because of their competence, or something did not get retrained or anything like that. So the ADEA, which is the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, prevents those people from being fired, or if they maybe were on leave or whatever it was, they have to come back to their jobs. Okay, now with ADEA, any term, condition, or privilege of employment, including hiring, firing, promotion, layoff, compensation, benefits, any of those assignments, training, you should not be excluded because of your age. And if it's because of your age, then what reason do you have, or you think it's because of your age, what reason do you have to justify that? Sometimes employers, they kind of operate on the cusp of these laws, right on the borderline, so they know that they're not going to get into trouble if they put all the people who are 60 years old or are still in their tenured teaching jobs, if they put all of them, or if they exclude them from certain committees, or if they put them, or yeah, don't put them in any kind of groups that help the organization to function, or where their service could be very beneficial. So what they sometimes do, though, to organizations sometimes do, to make it seem as if this is not what is happening, that they're not discriminating, they may pick one person in that age group to do something, while the majority are without the training, or without the benefits, right? Or without the special job assignments that are reserved for younger workers. So there are ways that you could see that it is happening. ADA has to do with discrimination against people with disabilities, and with disabilities, if you're able to do the job, then employees make reasonable accommodations, right? Now, you have to provide like a medical documentation to say, okay, that this is a disability, or suffer from disability, this disability, etc., right? So with accommodation, though, let me say this, if it's going to be a burden on the employer or create undue hardship, then they do not have to make reasonable accommodations. Okay? Reasonable means that, you know what, it could work. You know, there isn't a lift, there isn't an elevator on the building because it was built so long ago, but we can put in a wheelchair ramp. Okay, so that that's us creating reasonable accommodations. With the FMLA, which is a Family Medical Leave Act, you could take time off for your family for medical reasons. Okay, and this medical reason also include the birth or adoption of a child. Covered employees must provide eligible employees up to 12 work weeks. So you get 12 work weeks and your job is protected during a 12-month period for certain conditions. Okay, now it is the job of human resources to follow and keep and maintain these laws, right? In that way, they're protecting employees from discrimination, right? If we go back to where we're looking at this through a social justice lens, then we can also see where employees have the upper hand. I'm sorry, employers have the upper hand in ensuring, and especially HR, in ensuring if these laws are followed, right, discrimination is minimized. Okay. Okay. Before we go to the next slide, there are some limited cases, true, where age limits can be set, right, for maybe pilots, police officers, and if you think of young persons or younger persons who work in bars, there's a age requirement for alcohol consumption, right, and serving alcohol. So yes, age could be a bona fide, can be justified, right, as a bona fide occupational qualification. So you need this in order to, or the organization need this for you to be employed there. Okay, Fair Labor Standards Act, or also known as the FLSA, and this looks at or focuses on minimum wage requirements, child labor, and overtime pay requirements, right? Where we see our employers keeping records, that is mandated by the FLSA based on our hours worked, wages paid, and all these things, all right? Moving on. Next, we're looking at the labor relations laws, and these are protected and created by the NLRB, okay, which is the National Labor Relations Board. The A in NLRA means act, right, and it covers collective bargaining, where you see unions going back and forth and being able to strike, etc. That is what the NLRA establishes. Now, there is an act known as the WARN Act, and it ensures that if a plant is closing, advance notice must be given to employees. Okay? You can't just close a plant and then so many people are left jobless, right? So the WARN Act protects workers by requiring advance notification before there's a mass layoff. And sometimes we hear about these layoffs and people didn't know, etc. Right? So it has to do with plants, though, right? Plant closing. Now let's look at some non-compliance consequences. So what if you don't comply with the laws, right? So there are fines and penalties, there are lawsuits, there's damage to reputation, there is pretty much some of the same things here. Reputational damage, which I just noticed I repeated that. And if there are major financial, legal, and reputational consequences for companies, then that should be a deterrent that they should comply with the consequences. But it's human beings we are dealing with, and we're going to get pushbacks and repulsion and non-compliance. So we have to bear those things in mind. Okay. Best practices of compliance. HR professionals must stay up to date on employment laws, so we need to know what is happening regarding the law. Read information out there. Everything is not covered in a textbook or a presentation. You have to do exploratory reading, okay, to know what is happening, what's the latest laws, etc. HR must educate managers and employees. Yes. Training should be provided, resources to ensure that people understand what is going on, employees understand what is happening. And of course, audits and document compliance. Conduct audits frequently and keep records to demonstrate compliance with the regulations. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. So, our objectives, we looked at several HR laws. So you can now list and define several HR laws, explain HR laws as well, the key ones, evaluate non-compliance consequences, and of course, assess compliance best practices. Thank you for listening. Have a good one. Bye-bye.